It was a calm summer morning when I first noticed the commotion. The HOA had organized a large picnic on the grassy area adjacent to my private lake. At first, it seemed harmless, just a few families enjoying the sun. But when I drove closer, I realized Karen, the same relentless HOA president who had made my life miserable for years, had convinced them to set up tables, grills, and even a small stage for live music, all dangerously close to the edge of my property. My lake is legally fenced and marked as private, home to several species of protected wildlife, including a small population of legally registered grizzly bears I had been caring for under a county permit. Most people didn't even know about the bears, but Karen sure did not respect boundaries. I parked a safe distance away and watched as she flitted around, clipboard in hand, directing volunteers like a military general preparing for war. I approached her calmly and said, "This is private property, Karen. You need to leave immediately." She waved me off. "Don't be dramatic," she said. "We have a right to enjoy the common area, and this is for the community." I pointed to the signs posted along the property line. Private property, no trespassing, and reminded her that any unauthorized entry onto my land would be considered trespassing. She laughed. "You're bluffing. This is a neighborhood event. Everyone else is here." I sighed and decided it was time to escalate quietly but effectively. I reached my truck, grabbed the radio transmitter I keep for wildlife management, and sent a signal to the enclosures along the far end of the lake. Within minutes, I saw movement. The grizzlies had been roused and were heading toward the picnic area, cautiously at first, then confidently as they approached the intruders. Karen's face went pale when she noticed the large, lumbering forms moving in her direction. "Keep them back," she shouted to the volunteers, who were already scrambling to gather tables and chairs. Panic spread quickly. People didn't know what to do as the bears approached, circling the area like protective guardians of their domain. I stayed calm, knowing the animals were trained to avoid unnecessary aggression but would firmly assert my boundaries. Karen tried to run toward me, screaming, "You can't do this. These are families." I raised my hand and said, "On my property, the bears come first. You're the intruders here." The volunteers tripped over blankets, chairs, and coolers, slipping into shallow water along the lakeshore as they tried to retreat. One table collapsed entirely under a mix of panic and spilled lemonade. Karen tried to corral people, shouting orders that no one listened to, as the bears moved strategically to block any access to the picnic perimeter. I called the county animal control to report the unauthorized gathering and potential hazards, explaining the situation, and within minutes, deputies arrived to document trespassing and public endangerment. Karen tried to argue that she had permits for the community event, but the paperwork was meaningless since it was on my private property. The officers escorted the guests off the land while I ensured the bears were safely guided back to their enclosures. The entire ordeal lasted nearly an hour, and by the time it was over, Karen's humiliation was complete. Drenched, muddy, and publicly embarrassed in front of everyone who had witnessed her reckless misjudgment. The HOA held an emergency meeting to distance themselves from her actions, citing failure to respect private property and wildlife laws, and Karen was removed from any events or enforcement roles indefinitely. After that day, the lake remained entirely off-limits to the HOA, and word quickly spread in the neighborhood. The grizzly bears weren't just my pets. They were my line of defense, and anyone crossing the property line would face consequences. Karen never approached the lake again, and her warnings to volunteers were ignored after everyone witnessed the bear-assisted evacuation. I restored order, checked on the animals, and left signs along the perimeter emphasizing that the lake and surrounding property were fully protected under county and federal law. Every time someone drives by now, they see the lake calm and serene, but the memory of Karen's chaotic intrusion lingers, serving as a permanent reminder that some boundaries aren't just suggestions. They're legally enforced and sometimes backed by a very furry, very intimidating security team. From that day forward, my property remained untouched. My bears remained calm but alert, and Karen's reputation as the neighborhood enforcer took a hit that would last for years, all because she underestimated the consequences of stepping onto my land.